One father brought me a doll. He said I got it from my grandmother, who died a long time ago. The doll had been lying hidden in a suitcase in the attic for several years, and my father found it and brought it to me. I was very happy with this gift, because at that age I really liked playing with dolls. The first night, I put the doll next to me on the bed on the left side. I had a bad dream. I woke up and noticed that the doll's head was turned in my direction, and the eyes were looking at me. Turning the doll's head straight, I tried to fall asleep. For a second, opening my eyes slightly, I was surprised to find that the doll's head was turned in my direction again, and the eyes were staring at me. I thought maybe she was alive. A childish thought, but then it was so real. I asked her why you were looking at me, but she didn't say anything. A few minutes later, I fell asleep. The next day, when I woke up, I went to the bathroom to wash and found a small bruise on my left hand where the wrist is. The bruise looked like the imprint of a small hand, a hand. 4 small stripes were visible. I immediately thought of the doll. And I remembered that she was looking at me at night. After washing, I went to the bed where the doll was lying. His head was turned up and his eyes were fixed on the ceiling. Then my father came in and told me to get dressed quickly, because we had to go to the hospital to the dentist. Arriving from the doctor, I spent the whole day at home with a neighbor who was my best friend. In the evening before going to bed, I removed the doll from the bed and put it in the corner where there were 2 more dolls. I had a terrible dream again. There was that doll in the dream. I woke up again in the middle of the night. When I opened my eyes, I noticed that the doll was lying next to me on the left side. Her head was turned, and her eyes were staring at me. I screamed violently from surprise. After a couple of seconds, my father came to my room and turned on the light. What happened? My father asked me. I replied that the doll that was lying in the corner turned out to be in my bed, and it scared me very much. My father smiled, came over and kissed me on the forehead. Sleep tight, and I'll take the doll to the hall. I nodded and wiped my eyes wet with tears. The father left. I couldn't sleep. I was spinning, but half an hour later I fell asleep. Morning came and I woke up. I washed my face and went to the kitchen, but my father was not in the kitchen. Strange, I thought, because he was always in the kitchen, preparing breakfast for us. I went to his room and opened the door. The father was lying on the floor next to the bed, and he was white. It was like an electric shock when I saw that my father was lying and not breathing. I ran up to him and cried, "Dad, Dad!" I shouted. I was horrified to notice that the doll was sitting opposite the bed and looking at me. A shiver ran through my body. It seemed to me that the doll was smiling, or maybe it wasn't. I took her by the hair, opened the window, and threw her out into the street. A minute later, I ran out into the hall, picked up the phone, and called an ambulance. And then I thought, what if someone picks up the doll and something like this happens? I ran outside and went under the window, from where I threw her out. I never found the doll. Several years have passed. I still can't forget about the doll, and sometimes I dream about her, and she smiles terribly. The second story is a 7-year-old girl named Molly loved dolls very much. She collected dolls and put them on her bedroom shelf. She didn't study very well, so her parents told her that if she corrected her grades, they would buy her a new doll as a gift. Molly tried very hard and soon good grades appeared in her diary. Her parents were pleased and decided that they had to fulfill their promise. The next morning, Molly's mother took her to the mall to pick out a gift for herself. When they passed by the mime of an old toy store, the girl grabbed her mother's hand and began asking her to look into this store. When they entered the store, the mother told her daughter that she could choose any toy she wanted, no matter how much it cost. Molly wandered among the dusty shelves of an old toy store until she finally came to the doll department. On the top shelf, among the old boxes, there was a toy that immediately caught her eye. It was a clown doll with red hair, yellow eyes, and a big red nose. The clown's wrinkled face was disfigured by an evil grimace, and sharp and uneven teeth protruded from his mouth. One of the clown's hooked hands was clenched into a fist, and with the other hand he was showing 3 fingers. Molly turned to her mother and screamed, "Mom, I want this toy." "Are you sure?" Mother asked incredulously. "But this clown is so ugly and creepy." The girl nodded excitedly. "I want it, I want it, I want it." "Well, all right then," said the mother. She took the clown off the shelf and carried it to the counter. The shop owner looked at the doll and said, "I'm sorry, madam, but this clown is not for sale." "What? Why not?" the surprised woman exclaimed. The owner refused to answer. The mother looked down and saw tears welling up in her daughter's eyes. She began to bargain with the owner of the store and began to offer him more and more favorable price, but he still refused. In the end, she said, "I'll pay you $100, and handed him the money. The shopkeeper's eyes widened in surprise. He hesitated for a second, but then greedily grabbed the money and said, "Okay, you can take it." He packed up the clown and gave it to his mother. When the mother and Molly were about to leave the store, the owner shouted after them. "Just this," he said. "Never leave your daughter alone with this doll." Mother and daughter did not pay any attention to his words and left the store, satisfied with their purchase. When they got home, Molly immediately ran into the living room. The girl was overjoyed and spent the rest of the day playing with a clown while her mother watched TV. Playing with the clown, the girl became interested in why he was showing 3 fingers. That evening, when Molly went to bed, she put the doll on the shelf in her bedroom. Her mother kissed her and said good night. The next morning, my mother was cooking breakfast in the kitchen and started calling Molly to wake up. When the girl did not respond to her mother's screams for the 3rd time, her mother began to worry. She went to her daughter's bedroom to wake her up. When she entered the bedroom, she was horrified to find her daughter lying dead on the floor, in a pool of blood. Her throat was cut and her eyes were gouged out. A sharp knife was sticking out of her chest. Molly's mother couldn't believe her eyes. Then she saw that a toy clown was sitting next to her daughter's tortured body. Molly's mother started screaming in terror. The toy clown was showing 4 fingers.